You just heard it on the news break. And after 10 people spoke against a proposed apartment building for the chronically homeless in the city's near west side on Tuesday, 2 people spoke in favor of it. The St. Joseph County Area Plan Commission sent a rezoning request needed for the project on to the South Bend Common Council with no recommendation. The arguments against the project, a partnership between the city and the nonprofit South Bend Heritage Foundation, were reminiscent of the city's difficulty a year ago in citing a gateway center for the homeless on the near southeast side, project the city finally decided to drop, according to the mayor. He announced that on Monday. In both cases, people living near the proposed site said that they recognize the need for the projects. They just want them built somewhere else because they feel like they have enough poverty and homelessness in their parts of the city. So here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen. This is going to come as a shock to many of you. It turns out that people don't want homeless people living next to them. Who would have thought? And we can all be sympathetic to the homeless cause, but here's some realities. Crime, including violent crime, mental illness, and drug abuse, rampant in the homeless community. Rampant. If you've got kids or you just want to live without worrying about your surroundings in your neighborhood and your home and your dwelling and all of that, just want to enjoy your life, do you want that around you? Everywhere that I have lived, everywhere that I have worked, literally everywhere, when the homeless go to the parks are unusable to the community around it. Unusable. Everywhere. Literally everywhere I've been. Drug needles, public nudity, violence, all of those things end up happening at the parks because those are all very prominent and prevalent in the homeless community. And again, doesn't mean you don't have sympathy for them, but if you live somewhere, why on God's green earth would you want that risk, those things that are factually undeniable in the homeless community, why would you want them right next door? And I got news for you. Those things don't disappear because you give them some place to live with 4 walls and a roof. It doesn't go away. So who could blame these people? Who could blame them for saying, I don't want this around my house? And what do you think it's going to do? I know that I always say that people use the property value argument too much, and it's true, they do use it too much, but honestly, if you're going to buy a house and you find out that there is homeless apartments up the road, I mean, does that spur you to buy the house? Or does that maybe make you think, property value is probably not going to be so good, crime might be an issue? Those are all things that you're just going to, obviously kind of back away from. Let's see. From South Bend Heritage Foundation's perspective, we've said everything there is to say. The process has been very open, says Mariani. Marco Mariani, executive director of South Bend Heritage, said that he remains convinced that the site, 3 empty lots on the 1500 block of West Washington Street, is the best place out of 21 sites around the city that were considered. And it might very well be. Okay, Marco might very well be right. The neighbors, though, who paid to live there, they probably should take priority here. That is their neighborhood. They pay to live there. They bought there. That's where they live. And I can understand, and I'm very sympathetic to their reasoning for why they don't want homeless apartments in their neighborhood. Like I said, I appreciate what Marco Mariani is doing, and I can appreciate the desire to help the homeless and to try something like this and see if it works. I get that. But there are people who invest their money in these areas, and they don't want to open themselves up to the very real and undeniable realities of the homeless population. Now, by the way, Oak Lawn is going to be providing mental health and addiction services to the tenants, okay? So I get it. They're trying to address that. And that's great. If you live in the area, you still realize that that's a risk, okay? From South Bend Heritage Foundation's perspective, we've said everything there is to say. The process has been very open, Mariani said. And by the way, I would agree with that. It has been very open. This is a good proposal. It's the right thing to do for the community. It's a difficult location anywhere you go in South Bend to create permanent supportive housing units, whether it's a single site or scattered site. you're still going to see neighborhood opposition to this. And he's right. So why not go into a residential neighborhood? Has anybody considered that? I don't know. I honestly don't know. Has anybody considered not going to a residential neighborhood? Why not put them just outside of downtown South Bend? Why not take them into one of those abandoned buildings, rehab it, and put it there? It's just a suggestion, folks. Like I said, I haven't been involved in the intricacies of this thing, so I don't know if it's been discussed. Opponents, all of whom who live nearby, essentially made 3 arguments before the 10 Plan Commission members who attended the meeting. Their part of the city has long been ignored when it comes to infrastructure investment, such as street lighting and repaving. So the city and South Bend Heritage think it's the easiest and cheapest place to build the project. They're right. South Bend Heritage's first such project, the Oliver Apartments, built 2 years ago in the Rum Village neighborhood, has not gone well, an assertion that Mariani refutes. South Bend Heritage and the city didn't seek input from neighbors until late in the process, they said. So commission voted 7-3 to give the council a favorable recommendation towards rezoning the site from light industrial to mixed use, but that was a vote short of the 8 votes needed to send the council a recommendation. Voting against the rezoning were Commissioners Oliver Davis, who is also a council member, Martin Madigan of Roseland, and Harry Dudick of New Carlisle. So again, I appreciate what they're trying to do. I don't know enough about what has happened at the Oliver Apartments in Rum Village. If the people in the neighborhood here for the second project are looking at it and they're going, we don't like what we see at Rum Village, Mariani might dispute that, and that's okay. But if they don't like what they see, then why would they support something like that in their own neighborhood? And obviously, the people in Rum Village are going to be different people than would be in this new project. But he's got a point when he says, doesn't matter where you go, residents in the area are not going to like the idea. Right. And their reasons for not liking the idea are completely and totally justifiable. And there really isn't any way to argue against their concerns. So why bother doing it in residential areas? Maybe find someplace else where you can do it. Throw a little redevelopment in there, where neighbors and residential neighbors and things like that wouldn't necessarily have an issue. And then maybe that would be the best option. I'm just throwing it out there. If you all haven't discussed it yet, I'm sure that it's probably come up, and I have some guesses as to why it's not being utilized that way. But perhaps it could be a solution, maybe, to not irritate the neighbors in residential neighborhoods.